Is it okay if I have my champagne? Okay.
Yeah, there's just going to be young girls watching for career advice. You didn't tell them this is part of the job.
This is apple juice. It's fizzy apple juice here. So,
Ready, Brea?
yep, let's hit it.
Okay. Welcome everyone to today's melanated discussion. So this will be a series where we're going to be talking to melanated professionals like Brea that we have today. And they are just going to be walking us through what it means to be a woman professional in corporate America or corporate spaces. Basically, women who are doing the damn thing and are Black and successful. So today we have Brea. She is our first interviewee for this series, and Brea is joining us all the way from London. So thank you, Brea, for being here, and let's jump into these questions.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thank you, Sierra.
So, B, what is your job title?
Yeah, so I am currently a territory manager with, so simply put, I am in a sales position where I work with small to medium-sized businesses that are looking to start to utilize the cloud platform, particularly with for some form of fashion. So yeah, that's what I'm currently doing today.
Okay, very cool. So how did you get into this career field? Have you always wanted to be in sales, or was it like something you kind of fell into? Give us a little background on that.
Yeah, definitely. I can give a fair amount of background on that. So I've been in sales now professionally for about 12 years, but it is something that I kind of sort of fell into. So since I was a kid, a child, I thought that I wanted to be in the medical field. Particularly, I thought that I wanted to be a pediatrician. So I attended University of Chicago for my undergrad, and I was a double major in chemistry and biology, but I wasn't the strongest student. Like I just, just being one of those things where it's like you enter college and you have this newfound freedom and you're probably not hitting the books the way that you should be. So needless to say, I graduated, although I was a double major, I graduated from University of Chicago with not the strongest GPA, and I won't disclose exactly what it was. And I even had a career counselor while I was at University of Chicago to say, look, I know you really want to, possibly go into med school, but your grades really aren't the best and you haven't taken the MCAT. And I was just, I don't know, 22 and at a place where I wasn't quite sure if that was the route that I wanted to go. And I didn't honestly really enjoy being in school that much, so I was like, well, what am I going to do with my life, right? And so I made this bold move where I left Chicago. I moved back to the West Coast. I'm originally from California. I moved to Oregon, to Southern Oregon, in a very predominantly white rural area of Grants Pass, Oregon. And I kind of sort of still stuck with healthcare. I was working front office at a physical therapy practice in Grants Pass. And I really enjoyed it. It was great. It still allowed for me to have kind of like this peripheral just kind of interaction with patients and with healthcare. But I had someone that was a coworker of mine say, you're very charismatic, you're very outgoing, you just have this ability to be able to kind of like sell yourself, and people really gravitate to you. Have you ever thought about doing sales? And I had never really had any kind of like experience in sales. Like when I was in college, I did kind of fundraising, but other than that, like I had never sold anything really, so I was at a place where living in Grants Pass for 2 years as a young Black 20 somethings female. Clearly this wasn't the place that I was going to call home. But I was in a relationship at the time that caused for me to move to Atlanta, Georgia. So I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I was working front office for a medical device company by the name of Beckman Coulter. And I was an administrative assistant, but kind of had some sales reps speaking to me and say, have you ever really thought about sales? And I'm like, no, like I never, I mean, maybe, but I figured to try to make a go at it. So I interviewed for a series of different kind of account executive, account sales roles within that company, but I kept getting the door closed because I didn't have the experience. Problem was, it's like, well, how do you get the experience if no one takes a chance on you? And these are very senior, tenured hiring managers that were white males, well into their 50s, 60s, had been with the company for 20 plus years, that were just not really willing to give me a shot. And it wasn't until a younger sales manager had been promoted from an account executive into a managerial role. He was in his mid 20s, and he said, Brea, because somebody opened the door for me, I want to open the door for you. And he gave me a shot. And that's when I started my sales career in medical devices, and I was selling to independent medical practices, and as well as large integrated health networks across the U.S., like the like Vanderbilt and Emory Healthcare and things of that nature. So that's where it all kind of kicked off, and I haven't really looked back since. It's been interesting. Like, I started in healthcare, but I made the jump to IT, specifically in healthcare IT, about 4 years ago. Okay. And then decided to move more into like cloud sales within the last year and a half.
So after you finished college and then started looking into sales, how long would you say that period of time was from ending college and then actually getting into a sales position?
Yeah, it was about a couple of years, actually, because like I said, I was working front office for a physical therapy company, and it was about 2 years before I decided to actually make a jump into sales.
Okay. And so if someone were looking for a position like yours, so they've done all the college and all that good stuff, what type of job should someone be looking for or applying for? What would be like a couple of titles someone should look for, or keywords that someone could look for?
Yeah, so it just depends on the type of sales that you're in. Like I said, right now I'm in cloud sales. And so, my particular title is territory manager, which doesn't sound very salesy, right? But original titles that I had in the beginning stages of my sales career were sales consultant, regional business development manager, account executive, account consultant. And some of these were kind of hybrids between sales and account management, but those will be like the keywords or key titles that you'd be looking for.
Okay, and what is the difference between account manager and a salesperson? Because I don't know.
Difference. It's a big difference. So a salesperson, if you're thinking about, let's take a step back and kind of look at the sales cycle, right? So say it's myself and I'm speaking to a prospective customer or client. And I'm a salesperson, right? I'm a sales associate or a sales executive. I'm speaking with that customer, trying to understand exactly what it is that they're looking to do, kind of how whatever it is I'm selling can help them, that, trying to get them to buy into whatever it is that I'm pitching. So I'm riding the wave of the sales cycle, meaning I'm having the beginning stage conversations. I'm leading them through kind of understanding whatever it is that I'm selling, the value proposition around that. I'm helping them to understand business needs, exactly how whatever it is that I'm selling is going to help them both short-term and long-term with their business needs. So understanding kind of short-term, long-term goals, and then also understanding the very basics, like what's their budget, who has the ability to make the decisions, who are the key stakeholders, what's the timeline for this? Like, is this something that's going to happen in the next few months? Is it something that you're looking maybe in 2021 to be able to do? And then I'm riding this kind of wave, this cycle, all the way through to close, meaning that I've sold them whatever services that I'm pitching, and they're starting to utilize and implement those services. That would be a salesperson. The account management piece then comes in when once that customer is starting to utilize those services, well, now we have to have someone who is managing that book of business. It's like, well, making sure that they're so happy with the services that they're using, maybe trying to find other opportunities within the business for them to be able to use additional services that you may be able to pitch, kind of helping them to kind of stay nurtured. So an account management role is more of a nurturing role, where sales roles can be very transactional. It's, we spoke, I sold you something, transactions done. I'm moving on to the next customer.
Okay, and then it gets handed off to the account manager.
Exactly. But I will say that a lot of sales roles, particularly even with the one that I'm in today, is a hybrid of both being able to sell a product, but then also nurturing and managing that book of business beyond that sale as well.
Okay. So,
And
what are some things that you like the most about your job, this career field?
about sales in general, yeah, absolutely. So one, like I have just a very hunter mentality. Like I love going after, new customers. So I deal with a lot of what we call net new business or white space business, meaning that they are not utilizing any services that I would have in my bag to sell to them. So they may not even be aware of whatever it is that I'm trying to sell them or pitch them on. So I like that chase. Like I like the ability to go out and say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, or hey, customer X, let me tell you about this shiny new thing or this awesome new product and how it can help you and help, your business and help grow your business. And I like being able to kind of come in from a position of, taking somebody from not really understanding and knowing anything about anything that you're doing to getting them to buy into exactly what it is that you have to offer, and then getting them to a place to where like they realize like, wow, this was like an amazing investment. This is great. Thanks, Brea. So I will say for sales, you have to have a little bit of a hunter mentality, because you're not always going to be able to get a sales job that's going to serve you up healthy, fruitful leads where you just have to pick up the phone and they're ready to buy. 99% of the time, you're going to have to be able to not only sell yourself, but sell whatever product. Also, there's a level of rapport building. So people buy from people. And I learned that very early on in my sales career. So if you're a likable person, you're approachable, and you are pretty knowledgeable about whatever it is that you're selling, that's half the battle. The other half is actually getting them to sign on that dotted line and buy whatever it is that you want them to buy. So, over the years, I've had to really kind of craft and work on my likability and, my approachability and being able to like gain rapport very quickly with potential clients and customers. If you're putting out the right energy, even like I've even had sales deals where my product wasn't the best thing on the market, but customers bought from me because of me and they bought into me. So I like the ability to be able to kind of like gain the trust, excuse me, and rapport of, potential customers and clients. But then also, kind of the elephant in the room when it comes to sales is money. And, the ability to be able to, yeah, you have a base salary in most sales roles. If it's a corporate sales environment, you have a combination of both, excuse me, base and commission. So you are your own like boss in that case. It's like, here's my quota. If I get to my quota, I'm going to make this amount of money. If I blow my quota out the water, I'm going to make twice this amount of money. So it's like if you're in sales, you do have to have a level of being a bit money driven, because otherwise you could very easily be in an account management role and make a base and just work on just kind of keeping a business going and keeping them happy versus like getting yourself out there and really going for like, I want net new business because I got to make my quota because that means it's X amount of dollars in my pocket, which means I could do X, Y, and Z with that money.
So speaking of money, what would you say like the pay range is coming into this, this career field? You could start at, I don't know, 60K and go all the way up into what? And within that pay range, how many years would you say it takes to actually get more toward the higher, like the top of the pay range for such a role? What does that look like?
It's such a gamut. It just really depends on a lot of different things. Kind of, as you just alluded to, your tenure, how long have you been doing this job? How long have you been in sales? But then also industry is a big thing as well. So it's like I worked in healthcare sales. I worked like with hardline medical devices. Then I moved into toxicology. So like, kind of it was a toxicology pharma kind of hybrid role I was doing. And then I moved into healthcare IT. And then I moved into strict, cloud computing, cloud sales. So it's been 4 different industries, and the scale is very different for each industry that you're in. It is a combination, like I said, of your base pay as well as your commission. So 9 times out of 10, your company or whatever you're working for, they're going to offer you a split. So when we speak in terms of OTE or on target earnings, that means there's a base salary as well as commission. And that total, say if you were at 100% of quota, is your OTE. That base is going to vary greatly, just depending on how long you've been in sales, what you bring to the table, the industry that you're in. It's hard to put a number on it, but I can give you some of my own personal numbers, if you want.
So you don't have to give your pay of what you like make right now, but I'm thinking
yeah.
The first 5 years that you were in sales, did you at least make $50,000? Like I'm thinking of myself going into college or getting out of college and looking at these bills and these student loans that I have and saying, okay, well, I can't be working a job that's paying me $30,000 because that shit's just not going to work. It's not livable. So is this in sales within the first 5 years? Are you at least making 50, 60,000, and then you can just
absolutely
go there, or is it lower than that?
No, absolutely. Like when I first started in sales, my on target earnings, so including my base as well as my commission payout, saying again that I've hit my targets, like I've hit my quota for that year, my OTE was 120.
Okay. So that's
120K. Yeah. And I believe it was about maybe my base at that time was somewhere around like 70, 75K.
Okay, that's really good. That is really actually in your
20s. And but I've also was in that same role, but having had kind of transitioned into like a different division, of that company. I was making $250,000 a year.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That's exactly what
so, and it ranges, right? Like let's just say today I'm kind of in between the first and that highest, but it definitely ranges. But yeah, you have to be very knowledgeable of kind of what that's, and they call it a split of what that split looks like between your base and your commission. Just a tidbit here, you never want your commission split to be higher than your base split,
right,
because keep in mind that your commission is not promised.
exactly.
So you want to be able to have a base that's sustainable. So if 50K or 60K is sustainable for you, then make sure that when you're talking through job offers and you're negotiating, that you have a base that's sustainable. Because you have to imagine, say you don't hit your commission, say you don't hit your quota at all for that whole year, you're only living off of your base. Exactly. So you have to be very mindful of that.
Cool. That's exactly what I was looking for. Cause I'm like, somebody watching this, if it was me watching it and I don't know shit about, this career field or anything, I'm like, I need to know how much money I'm going to make, at least base, like you're saying, like a sustainable pay, definitely making more than 50, 60K. And then it goes up from there.
And now, like I said, it can range, right? Another thing is geography, like where you are in the US or in the world. Like, I live here in London now, and the pay grade is much lower than it is in the US. So it just depends on geography, number of years in the industry, the industry itself that you're selling in. All of that plays a factor, because there are definitely sales roles that are posted here in the UK today that are like sales engineers, sales consultant roles that are paying £26,000 per year. And that, that to me would be a no-go.
Right.
But I mean, that could be pretty standard.
Yeah, hell no.
I mean, it can be pretty standard though. So it just, I don't want to jump the gun here, but I'm a huge advocate for negotiating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as women, particularly, and even more specifically women of color, we tend not to want to negotiate an offer. And so it's very, very critical that you get your negotiating skills down. It's imperative that you never take the first offer. There's always, keep in mind, there's always
way lower than what they're willing to actually give you, because they're trying to give you the carrot and say, okay, well, if they said yes to this, like,
exactly.
We're saving the company money. We just had this buffer here, of course. There's always a buffer.
There's always a buffer. It's usually 20 to 25% that's left on the table there. So the key is you have a number in mind, whatever number that is. Say, I want a base salary of 100K. You need to go in, and this is when you're talking to the recruiters and as you're getting through your interview phases, say that compensation conversation doesn't come up until after you've gotten all the way through the interviews. They want you on board, which is a great place to like talk about salary, because now like they want you. So now you have a little bit more leverage. Always go in 20 to 25% higher. So if I know I want 100K, I'm going in saying I want 125K base, because that gives you some wiggle room. Because more often than not, I would say 9 times out of 10, they're not going to give you exactly what you asked for.
Right. Never.
Unless you have an extremely unique skill set that only you, from all the other candidates that they've interviewed, can provide. So they're not going to give you that 125, but more than likely they're going to come back with like 115. And it gives you, and now that's 15K more than what you originally wanted in the first place. Right. And at that point, you're free to accept that offer, or you may want to go back and do a little bit more negotiating. But you always have to have a number in mind for any role that you're interviewing with, not even specifically sales, but just in general. But really with sales, because again, a lot of recruiters will try to sell you on, oh, well, the OTE is going to be 180. Well, yeah, but only 80 of that is my salary. You're telling me that I have to bust my butt, and the other 100 is going to come in a commission that's not promised.
Exactly.
Because take into consideration, I'm a new employee. It's a new company. I have to have time to ramp.
Up. Exactly.
I have to ramp. I have to be able to learn the company. So it may be 3 to 6 months before I'm even any value to my prospective customers and clients. That's half a year gone. So now that 100 in commission gets cut to 50. So it's not 180. Really, it's more like, 130. And that's if I like do everything right to get that other 50.
Exactly.
So you have to be very solid in your salary and have a number in mind as to what you want. Always go 20 to 25% above that, with the initial throw out of a number, and then let them come back to you and start that negotiation.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Brea, because I know a whole bunch of people are going to appreciate that. I know I've watched a lot of career, how to pick a career and all this stuff. And I feel like videos are always, or even if you're talking to someone in person, it's always very cryptic. Like they don't want to necessarily give you all the nuggets that you need to know. But it's like, if we're in a position where we're doing well and we can hand off knowledge to other people, I'd rather give people the knowledge that I actually know, not try to give them little bits and pieces. So then almost like a hazing tactic, like, well, I had to go through it. Now you need to, you can figure it your way. No, I'm glad that you broke it down like that. is super helpful.
No, absolutely. It's important to know. Like I said, it's not necessarily for a sales role. It's for any job, any corporate job. You have to, especially as women, because we're less likely to negotiate an offer. It is, I think it's something crazy, like 1 in like 12 or 13 women negotiate an offer.
Right.
And it's like, why is that? It's like, we definitely have the ability to exercise that power. And as you mentioned, a corporate company will always dangle that carrot of, well, this looks good, doesn't it? And we bite, we go for it. But we know that there's still more left on the table. And another further point for, say you get a company that's not willing to budge on, say, the salary component, right? Say you're interviewing for a company, the recruiter told you very early on, look, the base salary is going to be $60,000 per year, no negotiating whatsoever. Say you get all the way through the interview process, they make you an offer, you get an email with an offer letter, and what does it say? $60,000 per year, non-negotiable. In the letter, there's still room for you to be able to negotiate. While that may not be what you wanted, say you wanted 75K, how else can I get this other 15K? Is it in the form of, say, additional PTO or additional holidays? Is it if it's an IPO, is there any way I can get additional stock out of this company? There's different ways in which you can try to make up for what they kind of shorted you on your base, but you have to get very good at the ability to negotiate, and just know that there's always something left out on the table.
I agree. So Bea, switching gears a little bit, we talked about the stuff that you like a lot about your job or the career field. What are some things that you like the least? And what are some challenges that come up within this job that make you be like, oh my goodness?
Wow. Sales is tough. It is not for the weak at heart. You have to have very thick skin. If you cannot handle being told no, then sales is not for you. Hands down. If you can't take rejection, sales is not for you. You will get 1,000 no's for a couple of yeses. And you have to be built, from a place of like resistance and being able to like persevere, being very tenacious. If you don't have those qualities, if it's not really, not to say that you can't learn those things, because you can, but I think the best salespeople is just innate. They just are, they were born with this ability to be able to stand the test of time and take rejection and still keep going. If you don't have those qualities, then this is probably not the right career field for you. So being able to take the no's and not take them personally, because a lot of colleagues I've worked with over the years, they kind of internalize things like, was it something about me? Did I say something? It's like, well, no, the customer just didn't want whatever it was that you were selling. And being able to kind of decipher between it wasn't a good fit, like what I was selling wasn't a good fit. It wasn't me, it wasn't Brea. It's just whatever I was selling wasn't the right fit. Being able to take the learnings from that, and then go into your next call. Because sometimes you may be cold calling. So for those who don't know, cold calling is just that. You may have a list of prospective customers, and you've got their names, you've got their phone numbers, and you're literally picking up the phone and you're dialing for dollars. And you've got to be able, it's kind of like old-fashioned telemarketing sales. For every person that doesn't want to buy your Cutco knives, you got to be able to hang up the phone and go on to the next and the next. And you got, say, 500 that you got to get through. You got to be able to get through those 500 because that's your job. If you're going to get discouraged in the first 10 that told you no, then maybe this isn't the right field for you. So that, and like I said, you have to be pretty tough, so you really got to be able to dig deep, kind of delineate between the job sometimes, and then your personal life as well, because sometimes sales can spill over. That's another thing that I've had to balance over the years. My own mother can tell you times where I've literally missed holidays. Like I forgot that it was Christmas or Thanksgiving because I was working on a contract and I just lost track of time. Didn't even know what day it was. So you have to set boundaries and be able to delineate. But sometimes because you are in like that go, go, go hunter mode, it does spill over into your personal life. So you've got to be able to set clear boundaries for yourself as well. But then also just as a woman of color, being a Black woman starting off in sales was very challenging for me. When I looked to my left and my right, I had white male counterparts who were twice my age plus, who had been doing that job, my same job, for 25, 30, 35 years. They were clearly very knowledgeable, but I could walk into a meeting with some of these, my counterparts, and the customer would never look at me. Even though I was the one presenting and speaking, their attention was diverted towards my white male counterparts because it was perceived that they were obviously more knowledgeable, more experienced, and who was this young Black girl in here trying to tell us what we need to spend our budget on and all of this, So that to me in the earlier, say 10 plus years ago, was very discouraging for me because I felt like I didn't have a voice. I wasn't being heard. I wasn't being acknowledged. I wasn't being taken seriously. And again, it all plays back into, you've got to have very thick skin. If that's gonna like make you turn into like this, well, maybe I'm not a good fit, then maybe that's not the right role for you, because again, that's external. That has nothing to do with you and your capabilities and your aptitude to do the role. That's just somebody being very ignorant and silly who chooses not to acknowledge you for whatever reason, being that you're a female or that you're a Black woman, whatever. So that can be very challenging. And even to this day, living in London, I'm the only Black American on my team of 70 plus people that share the same role that I have. And, I have a lot of ideas that I bring to the table, a lot of different innovative things that we can be doing as a team to be more streamlined. I've had my white British colleagues to take my ideas, present them to management as if they were their own, and I'm not getting any credit for that. So it can be very, very, very discouraging and very challenging. But at the end of the day, again, like you really have to be just very strong and firm in yourself, being very reassuring to oneself, knowing like, I'm worthy, I'm capable of doing this job better than anybody else on this floor, owning that, and then be able to execute that and put that out, towards your customers and your clients.
Definitely. You already answered one of my next questions. So
I'm psychic.
Are there growth?
I'm a bomb salesperson, but I'm psychic too.
So Bea, are there growth opportunities within this career field? Like, should you plan to pivot after a certain time and do something different? Or is it very easy to kind of branch off into other areas? I know earlier you mentioned like being in different industries. So that would that be kind of your branching off? Like if you get tired of selling cloud services, then you move over to pharma? Or is there anything else outside of that and outside of the account management role that still coincides with sales that you could move into if you're tired of being the frontline salesperson?
Yeah, I mean, you can always move from an individual contributor or an IC into sales management. And that's the natural career trajectory for someone like myself who's been an individual contributor for the entire time that I've been in sales.
And what difference would it be by being in management versus what you're currently doing? What is the manager doing different that the sales specialist is not doing, I guess? What are you picking up as the manager?
Yeah, I mean, you're not in the trenches anymore, right? So it's like you're not in the front lines. You're not more than likely on a day-to-day basis, you're not interacting with customers and clients in that sense, but you are, I will say this, a good manager, an emphasis on a good manager is equipping their direct reports, their team, to be able to interact with customers and clients, to effectively be able to sell, position, like give the value proposition, manage a book of business, and rinse and repeat. A good manager will make sure that their direct reports are set up for success. Now, we are not all blessed with good managers. Sadly, we're not. And so let me draw upon previous companies that I worked for where I had good managers. A good manager will tell you about kind of your blind spots, your areas that you need to improve on, the challenges that you may face or will face, and will come alongside of you, equip you. Maybe they won't fix your issues, but they will equip you to be able to, mitigate those gaps so that you can be a more effective salesperson. A good manager will realize the value and the talent in you. And if you express at any point, like, hey, I think I kind of want to do what you're doing, a good manager will help you to like forge the way to be able to move into a role similar to that, to being that manager, right? It's not a matter of, you're going to take my place or take my spot. It's more of, I realize your talent. The reason why I got here, the reason why I want to do this, I want to open that door of opportunity to you, and I want to help you to move in that direction. Let me come alongside of you, sharpen you up, fine tune you, so that when that door opens, even if I'm not the one to open it, you're ready to kick it in full speed and go for it. A good manager will do that.
Right. And managers are not threatened by other people who
are not threatened. Exactly.
They're not intimidated.
Right. And they're not intimidated. Now, a not so good manager is a manager where you don't know what they are doing day to day, like on a day to day. You have no idea. Like, especially in today's time, right, where we are in the midst of a pandemic, everything is done virtually. Like, you haven't heard, like, if you were supposed to have, say, bi-weekly one-to-one chats to talk about career progression and growth and challenges and things like that, and that manager is not holding those meetings with you, they're skipping out on them, they're rescheduling them for whatever reason, or they just choose not to have those conversations with you, it's a bad manager. A manager who will present themselves to you, say in a one-to-one, like, hey, I'm very transparent. You can come to me about anything, and any challenges that you're having, express. And then in the next breath, that manager comes back down to you and says, yeah, Brea, we got some problems here, but we just spoke a week ago and you didn't tell me I had any problems then. Oh, well, I'm just the messenger. It's not coming from me. That's a bad manager. Because a good manager will take ownership of the performance, and I'm speaking specifically about sales, of the performance and the outputs of their direct reports. If they're not doing that and they're placing everything back on you, then, and they're reporting up saying, well, I don't know what's going on, then that's not a manager that's supportive of you, not necessarily just as an individual contributor, but just as a person in general. So that's another red flag when it comes to not so good management.
Right. So whoever is watching this, if you ever get into a corporate space and that's what you're running into, a manager is more hands off the wheel. They don't really know what's going on. They're not advocating for you. Don't be surprised when this happens to you, because it will happen more than not. There are people who are not qualified to be in management positions. They just got there because of maybe tenure. They've been in a position for a very long time or on the same team for a very long time. So it seems like the next natural step would be to put them as a manager. And some people just do not serve as managers. Some people do not serve as leaders. You're not a leader. They need to defer to the person who actually can lead. But in corporate spaces, don't be surprised if you run into this situation.
And there is you have to make sure that you're, delineating between a people manager and like a product manager or a program manager or a manager of something that's not people, because not everybody is cut out to be a people manager. Not everyone's a people person.
Right. So B, any tips you can give to a younger you, so your younger self, or maybe a younger person that might be watching, or maybe another melanated lady who's like in the midst of thinking like she wants to make a career change. How does she go into this career field and kill it from day one? What are some things that you would have benefited from if you knew it 12 years ago?
Oh, it's for sales, it's tough. Like it's a lot of what I just alluded to as far as being able to, have that innate sense of like, a go-getter, a hunter, being able to be very just resistant, very tenacious, take no prisoner type attitude. You have to kind of have some of that inside of you. But if I had to look back on, say, my 22-year-old self, the advice that I would have gotten or would have given myself is you're just as capable. Because I definitely started off in this career not having had sold a thing in my life, and was very blessed to have a younger manager kind of come alongside of me and say, I'm going to give you a shot. And when you're in a space of, like I said, for me, it was predominantly white males who were twice my age, who were clearly extremely accomplished. And I had imposter syndrome out the gate. And I felt like I wasn't worthy, and I felt like I didn't belong there. I questioned my ability to even be able to be a good salesperson. If I could go back and redo that, I would come out the gate with the mind frame that I have today is you are just as worthy. You are just as capable, because you would not have been afforded this opportunity if you couldn't do it. It wouldn't have happened. So, being able to have kind of that inner grit about me out the gate, I think would have definitely helped me be more successful in those embryonic stages and those beginning years of my sales career, for sure. Like no company is looking to just hire people for the sake of hiring people. You are more than enough to be able to kill it in this job. Otherwise, they never would have picked up the phone and called you. But then also, you really, this is something that I had to get better at over the years, is what is my value here? Like, what value do I bring to this position? What value do I bring to this company? Because I think that goes very, very far, because one thing I had to learn the hard way is everyone is looking all the time. And you never know who you're going to cross paths with that can open a door for you or close a door for you. I'm more than just a salesperson, but then also I bring all these awesome, amazing things to the table as well.
Very true. Well, Brea, we've gone through all the questions. Thank you so much for your time. And in closing, I have 3 questions. I was watching one of these speakers I really like a lot. I think it was Lisa Nichols. I don't know if you know her or not.
Yes, I do.
I got this down to make sure I close out all the series of professional series with this. So for whoever is watching, 3 good questions to ask yourself when you are choosing a career is, what am I good at? What do people tell me I'm good at?
Exactly.
And what's holding me back? And if you can answer all these 3 questions and then also incorporate all this good information Brea has given you, I think you'll be set. You just have to do it. Everything is about action. So
absolutely.
Thank
you. Yes. Great questions. I love it. Another thing, if you don't mind, I want to add one more thing. You could do the 5-5 thing. So the 5-5 thing, I read about this earlier in the year. 5 questions you could ask 5 different people in your life, right? So questions can be something like, what am I good at? What do I need improvement on? You know, what is something that you've wanted to say to me that you haven't said to me as it pertains to like my talents and my abilities? And, you know, so you have that this list of 5 questions you can craft, and you ask those questions to 5 different people. And the purpose behind that is it gives you a very good cross section of, you know, different angles, different opinions, but the cross section of questions gives you a good, like, full circle, like, totality view of you. And I did this, and it kind of helped me to kind of reshape, you know, my thinking, because I've been in this industry and in this field for so long. Like, just recently I had a few friends say, Brea, your voice is great. You would be great at like voiceovers or something like that. And I'm like, what? Like, I never thought about that. But, you know, it's a great way to kind of just get a holistic view of how others see you. And you don't always see in yourself what others see in you. So it gives you an opportunity to allow people to speak into you and then act on those things accordingly.
I 100% agree. So thank you for your time, B. Thank you for the information, the straight up information, not no fucking dangling a carrot, trying to give you a little bit here, a little bit there, and make you figure it out. Like, if you want to be a Brea, just laid it out on the table. So there you go. You're welcome.
Well, thank you, Spirit. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun. Definitely.